This week we're on risk. Really, what is it? What is reasonable to think about risk? What's our risk profile? What is our risk purpose? Okay, we're going to see those things in a minute. We're telling you to bring your business, but we're asking you to bring it around your risk profile. Okay, so I'm going to switch. Bring your business, get something on your mind that's been risky to you, but then tell me what is risk. How do you define risk? No right answers. We're just getting warmed up here, right? No free salads over this. No nothing. Just what is risk to you? It's the management of what you don't know. Is what you're really saying, right? A possibility of loss. You're thankful for risk. Allows you to sell insurance. And what do the insurance companies do with that risk? Yeah, they hedge it some other way. Yeah, exactly. Right? Hedge, and then or you match it to another asset. Still more risk management, right? It's a business that creates more risk management. I understand insurance now. See, good. What else? How else do you define risk? Variability of potential outcomes. That's a good definition. And the outcomes are based on the outcomes, because there's upside and downside, right? Risk is a relatively new term. You hear like doing those Google word searches and seeing how that word was used over time and how it's climbing. It's not Tim Keller in his talk, and by the way, his talk on this is better than I'm going to cover for you in the next 45 minutes. So I commend that to you. It's at the bottom of the article. There's a video link to you. You can listen to it as a podcast. It'd be good. It'd be really helpful. But he points out that it really was not a term at all to about the 1600s. It's now actually in our Bible for some reasons, but that's how we update our translations, by the use of the words people are using and matching it to original Greek. And now we got a word for that. But it really wasn't a word that was in use. And it really, before there was people thinking about risk management, is really where fatalist and really what the gospel was preaching against for the early part of the church was fatalism, that I can't control my fate. I've got nothing, so I'm just going to. And Keller laughs about that too. He said, "Well, I fell down the stairs. Oop, glad that's over." So like it was destined to happen. It happened and moved on. But really, deism brought in risk, because we sailed to the New World for good reasons. We were being persecuted, and there was all sorts of religious freedoms people came for, but also there was all sorts of commercial and entrepreneurial activity. And the deists really believe, a deism belief like Thomas Jefferson was God is God, yet he kind of put this in place like a clock, and therefore it's our job to manage it from here, and so we got to see how to manage it. And who sometimes lives like a deist? Yeah. Except I
said sometimes.
Sometimes. Good. And so sometimes can be 1% of your time or 99% of your time, and we're going to try to take it down 2% today, whatever it is, of yours. And then you will let God keep taking it down, because He's in complete control of all things. And we have free will in all of it. And we're going to see how those things match up as we think about risk. What risk have you taken in your life? What are some risks you've taken?
Driving to work today.
Driving to work on Poplar.
Well, I went to Olive Branch, and I went to another place. Oh yeah, it's on 240 is the
240 is the Gladiator.
Yeah, Poplar and 240.
And it's a little slick too, right?
It was slick and raining. Yeah.
How many cars past you going like 100?
Ooh.
That's the game.
I stopped counting 20 probably.
I promise I wasn't out there. I was right here. So driving's risky. It's more risky than some of the things we're scared of, actually. A lot riskier than some of the things we're scared of. So that's a good answer. It's free salad. So what else? Getting married? Even asking her out the first time.
It is.
What are the rewards?
Oh, infinite.
A baby.
Yeah, it's amazing.
How old is he? 4?
He's 3.5.
3.5. Joy for both of you. She's your joy. He's y'all's joy. It's worth it. What were the downsides? What are the downsides of that proposals? Utter rejection. Never to recover. What other risk for the reward? Yeah, you're making decisions all the time, and you're making reward versus downside decisions all the time. Even which you're teasing about the path to drive, but I'll go this way. It might be faster. It might be more dangerous. It might be all day long you're doing that. And we take some fairly risky behavior. But then even investing in each moment when it seems hard, and just go back and crawl in your corner to take the risk to humble yourself. That's what you want to look at that next week. Humble yourself and come in and it's a risk to then lay yourself back down, humble yourself to right the ship you messed up 3 hours ago. Take another risk. And relationships are constantly that risk reward. That's just ignorance now. Yeah. Okay.
So I've been taking my time more.
Yeah. Yeah, that's our Romans 12 too. But we can test it, right? We can test being patient. We can test being kind, or we can go for it. It's just bothering the stink out of me. So I'm going to say, all right, I learned that didn't work. We are pretty addicted to risk, really, if you think about it. The brackets. Who knows somebody who's all wrapped up in their NCAA bracket right now?
My story sucks.
Yeah, I was going to say, it depends on what you put down.
So thankful UCLA lost last night. I've gained back 18 minutes a day. at least maybe 25 minutes a day for the rest of this weekend. I've gained it back. But everybody's into it. 22 million people in the States are participating in it. In just ESPN's. Maybe it's 20 million, 0.2. But it's over 20 million people. All wrapped up in it. What are the chances of winning?
Astronomically low.
Anybody know? 1 in how many?
Oh, for the actual bracket?
Yeah, to pick a perfect bracket.
Billions.
Is it in the billions?
Trillions. 64.
Trillions? Is it higher than trillions? What is it, Mike?
Billion, I don't know.
It's way up there.
I think there are more stars in the universe than there are.
One in 9.2 quintillion. That's with a T. I mean, I think that means it's past quadrillion, past quadrillion. Quintillion.
Sounds like a made-up number to me. I'll trust you.
The New York Times printed it. I'm just going to go with it, right? So, and you can Google that for yourself later, not now.
I think the intern got a hold of that.
But why we're so wrapped up in it, and the reward is fairly high. Saying you're right. With each game, you have this, dopamine, adrenaline of I got it right, and I beat my son. My 8-year-old's at 98.6 of the world, and he just took my bracket and made about 8 changes. I was at 20%. He's beating everybody but 4% of the world. And then losing the game, like he had $1 million in it. He didn't have anything in it, just the pride of whipping especially two brothers. That's it. But highly invested. We do that, right? We get highly distracted, and our work can be the same thing. We take risk to keep it going because we like it. Because it gives us a dopamine rush. It gives us adrenaline. Oh, everything's good. What kind of new challenge do I need to take on? Who's made a mistake taking on an extra challenge? Could have just stayed in my lane on that one. Right. So we are, but there are upside and downside risks, and we are called to think about it and take them. But we are, as a society, I'm not so sure too. I don't have this totally fleshed out, but we're talking about Navy SEALs today. They take risk, right? The people who moved to form the new nation took risk at their lives. It was even unclear how going to travel on a boat across an ocean that you didn't really know what it was. Those initial people to create a land that's better, a place that's better. They knew what the downside was. They really didn't know what the upside was except freedom. But they risked their very lives. Navy SEALs risked their very lives to protect us. Jesus certainly did. The early Christians risked their lives like crazy. And now our most exciting risk is somewhere between a bracket or sports gambling, which is tripled since 2019. Certainly the trackable revenues are for now, so at least IRS are participating in it. Sports, it's just amazing that sports who used to try to, it was always connected, but they tried to distance themselves from it, and they banned Pete Rose forever for betting on baseball, and now it's a $20,000 fine for betting on the NBA if you're a player. So, but because of the revenue, so there's lots of things at play here, but it is our insatiable need to risk something, but we're risking things from our armchairs instead of risking things with our lives. There was real risk in it. There's a real battle. I want you to think about that. I want to think about the difference in risking in a bracket, risking in sports gambling, risking in your business. And sometimes our business is more like a bracket than it is really risk for really good reasons. And sometimes sometimes we're not taking it because we should. But the chances of the bracket we already said, the chances of some other numbers I have for you as we've thought about safety a lot in Memphis. The chances of dying of COVID in the riskiest year, the March 20 to the February 21, were 160 people in 100,000 in the Shelby County area. That's 0.00160. But who eventually just said, I can't stay at my house anymore? I can't just stay there and think about this. Who said that? Who took risks during COVID, even during the riskiest time, or even during one of the flare-ups, to say, I just got to be with that person. You took a risk for your health for the benefit of somebody else. And then if somebody have a parent in a home or something, we took a risk not to, because we knew there was rampant there. We could knock out 10 people by going in there. All right, so we played those risks, but sometimes we just took them. Right? To get out of the pandemic, the big theory was herd immunity. Let's just some sense people need to get it enough to spread it out. I still don't understand the science of that. I'm not proclaiming that. I don't have a political statement on it. But eventually we all just moved. We just moved. The risk of being shot in Shelby County is something people don't think a lot about right now. Yeah. But the decimal on it is 2 more places over. To get to COVID during the riskiest time was 0.00160. The risk of being shot by somebody you don't know, the man you met at the mulch place on Shelby Farms, that happened to him, but is 9.18 out of 100,000, or 0.0000918. 2 more decimals over. And yet COVID taught us to watch the numbers like crazy and stay scared. But it's just, and that's for the whole year. That's pumping your gas and your wife's gas. I recommend it. If they're nervous, help people not be scared by laying your life down, but realize the math. If we got out of COVID by going back after it, we're only going to get out of being scared and being back after it. You're going to move to another county, but you're going to move. Maybe you'll move the decimal 1 more in the safest county on a farmland by yourself. Maybe. But we think about the risk and we play with them, but we're not risking safety. What made, you could argue, the nation great, what spread our faith, what people lay down their lives for, all the time to sit in our armchairs and gamble. So just think about the contradiction of those things. Think about that for a minute. So good. Not many of them came in boats. And Carter was looking up the psychology even of gambling. We're trying to say more about it than we're saying. We really can't because it's so confusing.
Gambling is done individually, which is the
more people are doing it. Oh, now it's advertised at the Grizzlies. So I guess that's okay. We can all do it together. But then there's a gamification of it, and that's what the brackets are. 20 million people looking at each other. Some of them bet a lunch, and some of them bet more than 2 nickels. But yeah, doing it together, going to the new world together that 200 other people are doing. That's part of the psychology of gaming that Carter.
Founding fathers, we shall all hang together or we'll hang separately.
Yeah. We've got a purpose, but they had so much purpose in it. Some right, it wasn't perfect, right? Some right, some wrong. I've never had a perfectly pure motive, but they were risking big time things to establish something they thought was a grand ideal, in order to establish a more perfect union. All right, so really good, but they did it together. I think it's one of the best points that's been made. What are we doing? And we need guys coming alongside of us. So we keep bringing that up as we look at the rest of the risk. So what risk might God be calling you to take? To make disciples. Now, what would you risk to make a disciple? The relationship. Who's got somebody who's so mad at him, never going to talk to him again because they tried to introduce God to him?
Oh, not that.
Right?
Somebody mad at me.
Who's got somebody mad at him over a business deal? Probably everybody, in some way, somebody has some. We had a lot of that this morning. We stayed on that. Yeah. You try to love somebody, they're really mad at you. The stats are only 2 in 100 would be mad at you, by the way. That's for the neighbor you don't really know. And really, we're probably called to be in relationship with people and move in relationship. So good. What's the upside of it?
Making disciples.
You make a disciple. What happened? What's the upside of being a disciple?
Just live completely different.
Live completely different.
Your salvation.
In term and in joy. Joy now, joy forever. And we can see it. We can see, like, I know they're miserable with this thing or that thing. It looks happy, but you can see what their God is. So what other risks might God be calling you to take?
I want to feel good.
Right, and you'll make decisions. I mean, social media, people are so worried that if my child is not on social media, they're just not going to be accepted. And yet you get to ask 16-year-old boys when they should start social media, and they 100% say, definitely not before 16. It was terrible for me. It developed these habits. It did these things. I just wouldn't do it. So you look backwards now, and look, I think when they were 19, they're going to say they wouldn't do it. They were just 16, 17, 18-year-olds that spoke to some 6th graders one time and said, I wouldn't do it. So you just, moving forward faster is a part of that. You do something to push back against the world, okay? And then you can test it. You can test and see how it affects their heart. I can tell you right now, with 15s, 18s, and 20s, I know when they've been on social media for extra time. You can see it in there's just nobody. I spoke to a group of 17, 18-year-olds this week who are here from northwest Arkansas. I'll make sure I get my directions correct, from Fayetteville in Binghamton. There are 22 of them, and they just said the peace and freedom they're feeling without their phones. They were on day 5, and how good they were feeling, and how they all knew. No one admitted that scrolling for more than 20 minutes did they ever feel good. Now, they might be checking on the friends, see how these people disputed, and might be shedding some love this way or that way, but that it brought them down after it was more than 20 minutes every time. And that was them saying it. All right. Risk, the rewards you shared and the downside you shared them. Holding to parental standards you think are biblical is what you're saying. Sure. The rewards and the downside would be your daughter's really mad at you for more than 10 days. Right? So, but to delay on risk here, to delay or fail to make decisions may be more sinful than to make wrong decisions out of faith and love. That's what you're saying. That's exactly what you're saying. Everybody was telling Bonhoeffer to settle down. He was over-spiritualizing this whole war thing. You know, let just the Nazis figure it out, and the Jews, and they'll just work out the way it's supposed to. Why do you have to over-spiritualize? We're Christians. We're kind of in the middle on this thing. He took his fellow pastors and they rode across the Sound, and they crawled up the rocks on the island where Hitler was training the Third Reich, the army. And he said, look at this. Look at how they're training. We have got to be better than this. And what he's saying is the spiritual battle is so much more important. We get so much, like, why don't we just stay at peace on that? No, the spiritual battle is what we're playing. And what's going to remind you of the spiritual battle more? We're going to help you. John Piper says the same thing. Risk avoidance may be more sinful, more unloving than taking the risk in faith and love and making a wrong decision. Especially, really, when you've done something out of faith and love, you're never really sorry. It could have been your 62% right motives or 92% right motives. I've never had a perfectly right motive in my life. But in those motives, if you did it for the majority in faith toward God and love toward others, you're not sorry, even if the actual tactic was wrong. Like I'm always speaking, saying something first, like what you're saying, and so I'm going to try not to say something out of faith and love. And then I realize you overcorrected on that when I should have said something. Right? That'll happen. Because you're learning not to. Now I've got a boundary. Now I've got those hedges. Like, now I know that when it's something that affects their spirituality or affects her spirituality or his spirituality, I'm going to do something. When it doesn't, I might not. And then you kind of play that out in patience. Psychologists say this, and Tim Keller points out in his stuff, the more fear of failure you have, the worse your goal setting is. So I polled everybody else in the other groups this way, but who in risk thinks more of the downside? Who's a downside person? Good, I'm glad the guy in the back right's honest, I knew that. And then who is more upside? I'm always thinking about the upside of it. I need to be held to the downside. Yeah, I need help. That's why we're such good friends. We need to help each other. Because the upside guy is going to keep doing things big, and he's not all the downside's going to work out, no big deal. And the downside guy is going to need some encouragement. Some of us whose spouse is the opposite. That's good. That's good. And so when you and your spouse are the same, that's okay too. You just need some friends who are the opposite to help you out.
It looks like in financial terms.
Philosophically, it's good, right? But in the minute, it's not. And you can leave that on there if you want.
And how rich, I know I can. And how rich are those debates, though? Sometimes they're contentious, but you got good places from them.
I'm
Sometimes it took 7.2 years, but you got there. But you got there. Praise the Lord. So, but they did this with kids who experienced trauma, and they put them in a gym with basketballs and kids that had not, and they saw how the kids without trauma just took layups. Just stood there right under the goal, and nobody took short-range jumpers. The kids who had no fear were just lobbing stuff the whole time. You've seen that in the gym yourself. Let's read this. So fear lowers our risk profile, but Jesus calls us to be bold and to take risk. What's happening here? This is David being chased. This is David who the whole army of the nation and the king were scared to death of Goliath and the Philistines. And the shepherd boy walks up with some sandwiches, give or take, and says, wait a minute, they're defaming our God. This is a spiritual moment. And they said, no, you understand. This is a battle moment. Lives could be lost. We could be conquered. He said, no, this is a spiritual moment. We're not going to let that guy talk bad about our God. Who's doing something? Nobody. What are you going to do? I'll do it. There's a better version in the Bible, 1 Samuel. But he sees it as spiritual. Now he's seeing all his foes around him. What's his hope? What's he going to do? His risk profile seems tough. What's he say, Sheridan? He keeps praying. Wait a minute, no fear. 10,000 people after me. Now it's back. That's the one we knew. He was just warming up. He was just admitting it's a tough scenario. He's faced 10,000 before. That's what they sang about him. He's faced 10,000. You know that it's in 1 Samuel 2. He's faced it. He knows it. But why does he overcome? What overcomes his fear here? You, Lord, are a shield. Nothing happens to me that you hadn't already preordained. Nothing. Not a sparrow falls to the ground. Not a hair off your head falls. He has it. Nothing's going to happen to you that's not God's will. And what you're my glory. I know I got tricked sometimes. I thought I was the one who slayed Goliath. I thought my greatest moment's all me. No, it's all you, Lord. You did it. That was your moment. This is your moment when it looks really bad for me. You're my glory. The one who lifts my head high. I didn't do it. You did it. You lift my head high. I call out to you the holy mountain. He answers me. I lie down and sleep. That's what we studied last week on long term. If your work is good, the Lord grants sleep to those whose favor's with him. He's granting sleep, David. Your glory's with me. So here's what Keller says. To deal with fear, to deal with risk, relocate your glory in God's glory. Make it synonymous. What would bring God glory here? Do that. It's not that we take risk, we take risk for the wrong reasons. The best glory in the bracket is maybe some camaraderie. It's pretty funny. We're going to tell stories between 8, 15-year-olds and 20-year-olds for a long time. It's funny. It's okay. But the glory in some of the things we go after are our own. And you can quickly see it in a 3-year-old. You can see it in an 8-year-old. You can see it in a 32-year-old. You can see it in a 55-year-old. Whose glory are we going after here? When I know it's in your glory, I can relocate it. And the news gets better, according to Keller. There is never any real risk to a real asset. I'm using the word real twice. There's never any risk to your real asset when you know what your assets are. What's your greatest asset? The Lord Jesus himself is your greatest asset. Where is he right now?
Right here.
Here. He's in you. He who is in you is greater who's in the world. He's in me. I'm in him. He's mine. I'm his. The hope of Christ is in you. The glory of the Lord is in you. He's my asset in this thing. He's my greatest asset. Everything else, we're going to see in a minute, is rubbish. Paul said that. Everything else is, I can come and go. How is this pointing? How is this aligning me with my greatest glory? Then other things can come and go. Seriously important things. Ham's testimony. Got down to $16,000 in some home equity, didn't he? What's he saying about that right now? After being considered very wealthy, down to 16 nickels at 53. What's he say about that now? Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord, he took me down to $16,000. I count on him more. His glory is more. I can say he did it, I didn't do it. He didn't say, in the middle of it, he didn't say, oh, thank you. But now he's saying, oh, thank you, Lord. But now he is saying, oh, thank you. He wouldn't be giving us a testimony if he didn't. It gets down to this. For me to live is Christ and to die is gain. It's a good summary. Had some debate on this one. The lesson was, don't use it alone. It's like one of those verses that it can be taken out of context. But what is the context? What's the reward? Who's seeking reward? Little amounts of dopamine by looking at your bracket or social media or your likes? Or the next, getting to the President's Club? Right? We got that in every business here, I think. So, or what's the best reward?
Glory.
Yeah. When do I get it? Yeah. Whether I live or die, I'm His. Right? That's true. Absolutely true. And that's what I can experience now. But my best day ever. Meeting Jesus is going to be the best thing that's ever happened to me. And we want to protect it all the time. So if that's glory, he's got a perspective. He knows that's his best day. He's not actually making a case for why he should leave. He's making a case for why he should stay in the middle of this, and we'll look at it in a second. But I know that's my best day. Now live as Christ. How did Christ live?
As a servant.
He lived how?
As a servant.
As a servant. He had it perfect in heaven. He condescended himself and came down, born in a cattle stall, born in dirt and humility beyond all humility. The boldest move ever, born in humility. We'll discuss that later. Born that way, and his trajectory was more and more servanthood. He lived in obscurity, relative obscurity for 13 years. At God said, this is my son who I'm well pleased. He grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man. He grew somehow. That's maybe beyond some of us right now, certainly for this lesson. He continued to grow, but at 30 he came out and his trajectory was death. Now did he just willy-nilly risk it? He said, if you guys are going to kill me, you just are, okay, I'll take it. Is that what he said?
The time has not yet come. Did he kind of put off revealing who he was?
Yeah, first he had to rebuke his own mother. Or did he rebuke her? Maybe that's too much of a verse too. But he said, my time's not here. When it's time but I'll do it for you. I'm still a son. I'll do it. And then people were trying to kill him, and he said, my time's not here. That chosen episode's excellent. He just kind of slips out. They're trying to push him. I'm not sure it was really over the rocks or not, but he kind of pushes out and goes, excellent. It's not yet my time. He knows his trajectory is death, but he's not risking it for no reason. It's not like, how do I lay my life down? How do I kill myself today? That's not it. It's how do I, in service or in love of others, move for the joy set before him, for the fact that this person will know God. The joy set before you is that she knows God, and you're doing your best you can. I think it sounds like a good decision. Some people debate it. It sounds like a good one to me. But the reason is right, so you're going to learn from it. So for the joy set before him, he went before. So it's not just take some gamble for the heck of it, or take a business deal for the heck of it, or but it's to surrender, to lay your life down for someone else. The biggest problem in business is that we really seek our own. And we're really not laying it down. But when we're really laying it down, there's more joy. I don't need this job. Now I'm going to move into it faithfully. We serve it much better. We know that. Read this. The other part is fear is a problem and also control is a problem. Frank, read about our control problem real quick. You don't have any control over your bracket? No. Of course, nobody does.
Statistically, no.
Statistically, no.
But literally, no either.
In the business deal, Rob Carter came and gave a testimony the first year about FedEx's bold move. And again, this was a pretty humble move, honestly. They were saying, take away $1 billion of revenue and to no longer work with Amazon because they could see they were lowering the margin. And so they said, no, we don't need it. We might go down. So it's a humble way to say this. We might go down, but we're not going down that way. I'm not saying it was a huge spiritual move. I'm just saying there was a humility in it. We admit we may go down, but we're not going down that way. And then God caused a pandemic. Did he cause it for FedEx? I don't know. I think he caused it for a lot of reasons. He allowed it for a lot of reasons. But the things they couldn't control, the things they had no idea about, took that revenue that they risked of $1 billion, replaced it within a year, replaced it of $1 billion, and added to it another $1 billion, which was over a 40% growth in what they gave up. And when the pandemic caused that. So the point is, the circumstances we don't control have a much more impact on everything. And so I can't say, here, I'm going to do this and that, I got it. I'm positive UT is going to win the whole thing. Positive. Bet the farm.
Don't do that.
And the humility that you're you take and that answers another question. You won't take UT because you know the results of last night. And that's what God has. God never take risks. Jesus did not take a risk. He knew exactly how it was going to turn out. We don't. He had 100% the cost, and I think it's a great verse to think about in this. But it's a discipleship verse. I know to follow him and to do what he says it's going to cost me something, and I know the reward. The tower's the reward in the parable. But I'm building something. I'm building God's kingdom. I know it's going to cost me something. That's what he said. And so every work moment is surrendered first. And here are the mistakes we made. I know I'm way over time on this. But look at this. I want you to contrast this. I'll read this. If I'm going to go on living in the body, this is right after to live as Christ, to die as gain. If I'm going to go on living in the body, this will mean fruitful labor for me. Yet what shall I choose? I do not know. I'm torn between the two. I desire to depart and be with Christ, which is better by far. But it is more necessary for you that I remain in the body. Convinced of this, I know that I will remain. I will continue with all of you for your progress and joy in the faith. Now it sounds like he's pretty bold there too. As opposed to the kind of the parable that James has given, you say you're going to go do this or that. Parable scenario that every one of us has done, right? So we'll come back. Humble yourself before God's providence. That's what the guy that James is talking about didn't do. He said, I'll do this, I'll do that. I'm going to go make this profit. It's going to be this way or that way. And he's not humbled before him. So in fear, Keller says we relocate our glory in God. And in control, we humble ourselves and say, I know nothing. You've got this. But then something even bigger. So let's look at all three things. Mistakes you make in planning. You overestimate the amount of knowledge you have. We don't really have it all. FedEx isn't that big a bit of genius. I love them. I'm glad it worked out totally. But they didn't know everything. In hurricane planning, we don't know everything. You overestimate the amount of knowledge you think. I got it. As soon as you think, I got it, I finally figured out the risk management formula for that, you don't got it, right, Drew?
There's a phrase we always use, is that your spreadsheet lied to you again.
Spreadsheet lied to you again.
Can't plan for everything.
Can't plan for it. So it's not, God's a planner. He says, we're not talking against planning. We're talking against believing we got it all the knowledge we have. Number two is you think you can control it, and you have your schemes, you think you can manage it. If I just do this, I can manage it. I got this. And three, you leave God and his kingdom out of the plan. That's what Paul is doing so right here. He's aligned with God and his purposes, so his confidence grows and grows and grows what he should be doing. Because he'd break it all down. It seems confusing, break it all down. And Augustine says, to understand Scripture better, break it down to what Jesus said. It all boils down to two things. Love your Lord God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, and figure out where that's in the passage. And what the sinner's saying, and I think Augustine probably meant this too, so I don't mean to claim it, but they same with your action. Lord, just show me. Know which thing is toward God. Which thing in this business deal is loving the Lord God with my heart, soul, mind, and strength. Which way will move me to more faith in Him? Which will move me to more service of people? That I know He's got me. In view of His mercies, I present my body as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is my spiritual act of worship. I'm moving in. I know He's got me. Paul's talking about a confidence, and Jesus talks about the inverse confidence. In his hometown, he could do little miracles. So somehow that compatibility that Keller's saying, which is right there, I lost it. That's another quote. I'm sorry. It's right here. There's real compatibility between God's sovereignty and what we do. The more we're working in His plan, the more confident. That's how Paul can say, to live as Christ, to die as gain. He's positive death is gain, so he's going to live as Christ. He's positive he's going to be here a little longer, because I can see he has some very specific things he needs me to help you with. Paraphrasing greatly. I can see for your benefit, it's good for me to be here longer. I know I'm being in His purposes very well now. Last time I was in prison, I didn't understand why I was in prison. All of a sudden, I wrote this letter. Maybe they're going to be reading this in a couple thousand years. Still. So he understands what it's like to be in the groove with God, and so he can then say things out of great confidence, and he's aligned it correctly on God's glory and the service of others. Each way. Spend your lives spreading the gospel of God for the glory of God to the ends of the earth. As you go, trust in His sovereign authority and depend on His indwelling presence and experience His incomparable joy. The same. I'm not willy-nilly laying something down. I'm not risking for the sake of risking. When I go to the gas station at night, I'm not letting my daughter do that. I'm taking her with me. I'm going to take her to go in the morning. There's some head on a swivel things. There's business things you've learned and risked that you're just not going to do. But I'm not going to live scared. I'm going to move forward in joy to show people that my trust is in Christ completely. And how do you know which? We just discussed it all. You know it by aligning it with His glory and His will. For me to live as Christ, how did He live? Moving towards surrender, constantly laying more down, knowing what awaited Him. Perfection and joy for people to be one with Him forevermore. I'm going to pass. So to take risk without being unwise is a quick summary. Y'all got 3 minutes even though I'm late? Huh? You good? Scott says go. Reckon with the reward. What's the real reward? That's in parenting. You're saying, I'm reckoning with the reward. I want to get this child home safely. I want he or she to do the right thing. So I'm going to hold back some stuff. And most of that's helped us. The reward is heaven. The reward for the people you love is heaven. Admire Paul's resolve. In this article, which is in the article from this week, there's a link. He's really saying Paul knew he was about to be martyred. He knew he was about to, first he knew he was going to be beaten. And he kept going in Acts 21 when they prophesied that he would be beaten in Jerusalem. You've got to keep going. Expect to be swindled. This is our problem in our businesses. We take risk for ourselves, but we want to hold it all back. You're talking about earlier partnering with a young person. That person could not be here. That person could take the partnership and use it wrong. Good, expect it, but you do it with a good motive. I'm doing it to expect to be swindled. The problem is we want to hold on to stuff so tightly. That's how we get ideas like God built this nation to protect it so that we're trying to, no, expect to have to give it away. Expect to be burdened. Expect to be swindled. Showing heavenly hope, because I'm not from here. That guy just took all your stuff. Why are you not so bad? I'm not from here. Again, I'm not being too lax with it. I'm just saying that's our hope. And where's that hope? It's grounded in deep confidence in God. God's going to do it. The best things that have ever happened to me are because He did it. I've got a track record. His track record's perfect. Mine's a little up and down. And enjoy the freedom of it. How much more freedom when you've been your most in paralysis and enslaved to something is mostly because you've made a claim. I've made a claim that this is going to happen. Follow me in this. This will definitely be the way it is. And then I feel the stress to make it happen. That's the reason not to raise money for something, whether it's for gospel ministry or for a venture, right? That's because I'm making a claim. No, I don't know how it's going to turn out. But enjoy deep freedom, and God's got this, and I'm going to move into it. Do you want to join me? There's a difference. And don't miss the joy. He causes, it's just like you said, Michael, they've got deep joy now. Knowing that I've got joy forevermore, I'm going to enter into his rest forever. I can enter into his easy yoke and his light burden and experience joy now by knowing that this moment in this business deal, in this relationship discussion, is to lead that person to a great reward, to know I've got a reward, and to be really, really excited, to pray that thy kingdom come. Come back quickly. Let me pray that now. Holy Father, you're so good to us. Your will be done. Your kingdom come. You're perfectly holy. Holy be your name. Would we be more excited about what you're doing than we are with our brackets, our businesses, our hometown teams? All that can be exciting and fun, and to see what you're doing. But what you're doing in the lives of all those players is much more important than our significance in that moment. We have grounded significance in you. Our glory, our best significance is in you, and it's through you, and it's all for you. And Lord, you just now give our lives as sacrifice toward you, not willy-nilly, but moving toward moving other people into your kingdom and joy, because you're doing it anyway, and we get the joy of joining you. For the joy set before us, Lord, take us out of here and help us to build your kingdom your way. In your name, Jesus, amen.